Yeah, thank you.
All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of South Oxfordshire District Council's Planning Committee. I'm Councillor David Brotherton, and I'll be chairing this meeting. May I remind everyone that this is a meeting in public, not a public meeting. Only members of the public who have registered to speak are allowed to do so, and I will call them to speak during the appropriate agenda item. This meeting is being held in our offices in Abbey House, Abingdon. Committee members are here in person, but officers and speakers are able to join remotely. The meeting has been streamed live on the Council's YouTube channel for public viewing. This assists to allow councillors who are able to attend in person to contribute to the meeting, but only councillors who are present in the room are allowed to vote. For speakers and members of the public who have logged on remotely, please ensure that your microphone is muted and that your camera is off for the duration of the meeting until you are called to speak. The Planning Committee is a decision-making committee of the Council, and it is important that a set procedure is followed. All committee members have received a full report on the planning applications, either on paper or electronically. We will first hear from the planning officer, followed by the parish or town council, then objectors, supporters and local members. Each group will have 5 minutes to speak to the committee, after which members may ask questions of the speaker. The committee may then ask questions The committee may then ask questions of clarification of the planning officer. It should be noted that committee members and officers may be using remote devices for reference throughout the meeting. The committee will then debate and vote on each application. Councillors wishing to ask a question or participate in the debate are asked to indicate this by alerting myself or officers by raising a hand. Voting will be by show of hands. Members, please raise your hands clearly and keep them raised to allow votes to take place. It is unclear how members are voting through a show of hands. I'll ask the clerk to undertake a roll call of those present and how they are voting. A few housekeeping announcements. In the event of an emergency, please evacuate the building by the nearest exit, which is the corridor immediately to the right of this meeting room, and then go to Assembly Point 9 in the outside area beyond the fire exit. The Democratic Services Office here present will assist you. Can everyone please ensure that their mobile phones are switched to silent or switched off during the meeting? All right, members of the public who wish to leave the meeting after their application has been heard are welcome to do so via the front door in reception. When the meeting has finished, I will ask for confirmation a live stream has ended. At that point, please leave the meeting and make your way out of the building. Remember to sign out as you leave. Right, so we'll go back to the agenda. So I can find it. There it is. Agenda item 2 is apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair, with apologies from councillors Joe Robb and Ali Gordon-Creed.
Thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting. Can I adopt to sign as a correct record the planning minutes of the meeting held on 30th of October 2024 and of the 11th of November 2024? So we go for the 30th first. Yep, thank you. And the 11th of November, the supplementary minutes we got. Yep, thank you.
Oh, sorry, it's just the minutes are from the meeting that was on the 30th of October. Sorry, it's as a supplementary to the agenda.
Yes, Chair. Yeah. Okay. Declaration of interest. To receive declarations of disposable pecuniary interests, other registered interests and non-registered interests, or any conflicts of interest in respect of an item on the agenda for this meeting. I see you.
I can just say, Chairman, that's the best you've ever said it.
Oh, thank you.
And when you said it was difficult the last time we were here, when I chaired scrutiny, I had a job to read it.
Urgent business. To receive notification of any urgent business?
No urgent.
There's no urgent business. Yeah. So we'll go to the planning application items on the agenda. The first one is agenda item 7. P22 S4596, land north of Bayswater Brook near Barton, the erection of the A40 cycle, a bridge and associated bridges. The planning office is Phil Moore, so I'll hand it over to you, Phil, for a presentation.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Sure, why or not?
It seems to be up on the screen.
Just pause to see if we can try and ensure that the presentation fills in time.
Screen's not working. Yeah, it's not been working all evening, has it? IT's let us down again.
Right, does the trick.
Again.
See.
Apologise for this. We'll warm up. We'll get there. Unless it just switches itself off.
That's appears to be loading back. Message from Emma next door to say if the screen is working for her. So,
Oh,
actually,
It's my side of the
we're able to proceed, but it would be based on that reduced size of the screen. That's acceptable to people. But we just wait a few minutes to see if
I think
can
we'll wait
find
a few more minutes, but we need to get on. So. We don't normally have that chat on that screen, do we?
No.
If we got rid of that, would it make it bigger?
Sorry, Catherine.
If we get rid of the chat, would it make that?
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah. Leave it.
And the cameras are all there. It's just. No. Can we get rid of the chat? We don't need that. Or is that too complicated?
Let's see if we can get rid of it. I don't seem to want to get I could possibly leave and rejoin the meeting, but that would mean adjourning quickly. So it's up to you, Chair.
I think we're going to carry on. I think.
Okay, I'll try and see.
I think we're going to carry on while Becky tries to sort it out. Yeah. Phil, over to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. There is one quick update before I start. We've had one further consultation response received since the committee report was drafted. This raises an objection to the application stating that the A40 bridge should be located next to the Marston junction on the A40. But that's a comment that's been received previously. It's mentioned in my report, so it's not a new comment. We've also received photographs of a sewage leak at Wick Farm dating back to December 2022. But where that is on the site falls out of the red line of this full access application, so it's not really material to this application.
Bill, could you speak up a wee bit, please?
Yes, sorry. The application is comprised of a series of parcels to the south of the main site, the subject of the outline hybrid application that has already been considered. It'd be difficult to see, but the red line is shown on this location plan, and copies are included in your agendas. The matters to be considered as part of this application therefore relate to those associated with these parcels as opposed to the wider outline hybrid application. The application includes land within both SODC and Oxford City, as shown on the slide. As such, the application has been submitted jointly to both SODC and Oxford City Council. Oxford City Council Planning Committee resolved to approve their half of the application at their meeting on the 15th of October. The application seeks full planning permission for a package of access works that are intrinsically linked to the outline hybrid application B22 South 46 18 outline that has been considered. They are required as part of the proposed measures to provide high quality pedestrian, cycle and public transport connections to Oxford more locally, promote non-car based modes of travel and maximise the number of trips made by non-car modes as required by Policy Strat 13. The proposal is accompanied by an environmental statement, the findings of which have been considered as part of the assessment of the application. Policy Strat 13 requires road access from the surrounding road network to serve the site. It also requires the provision of high quality pedestrian, cycle and public transport access and connectivity to Oxford City and other locations, and a new cycle bridge over the A40. Principle of the development is therefore established. The proposals are to be seen in the context of the master plan and parameter plan for the wider site. The parameter plan shows the locations of the main site access points, the main street through the site, public transport route through the site, cycleways, the pedestrian links, and points of connection to the infrastructure that is the subject of this application. Transport Master Plan also shows the pieces of access infrastructure in the context of the main site. This is the western access with the realignment of Elsfield Lane and upgrade to Marston Interchange, pedestrian cycle bridge over the A40 and public transport access from the A40. Connectivity bridges, B1 to B5, the Barton Village Road public transport access, and the eastern access on the Bayswater Road and the part of R19 access on the Bayswater Road. The off-site key works plan shows how the proposed new cycle routes would connect with the existing cycle routes at key destinations. The plan here, difficult to see, but the A40 bridge would connect to Foxwell Drive, and that connects with the existing cycle routes, providing cycle connectivity to Marsh Lane and to Marston Ferry Road. And also on the eastern side of the site, it's showing the improved cycle connectivity to Headington Roundabout and beyond. This is a submitted plan for the western site access. Plan for the eastern site access. This plan showing the proposed A40 pedestrian and cycle bridge, and also the public transport access and proposed bridge into the site off of the A40. This is a plan showing the elevation of the A40 bridge. Similar again, the plans and elevations. These are some visualizations of what the A40 bridge would look like. And these are the plans for the Barton Village Road public transport access and bridge. And section drawings provided as well. Again, all of these are in the agenda. We've got the submitted plans for Bridge B1 in band form and section form. Drawing to show what the bridge would look like. And then we have the proposals for Bridge B2. Again, showing cross-section elevations of the bridge, very similar in design to Bridge B1. The plans for Bridge B3, the section and elevations. Bridge B4, again showing the same family of bridges. Proposals for Bridge B5. The Cowes Council, as a local highway authority, are satisfied that the site access, public transport access and connectivity bridge proposals and raise no objection. Following the submission of the application, the boundary stone adjacent to Barton Village Road was listed at grade 2. The proposals for the public transport access at Barton Village Road have been adjusted to enable the retention of the listed boundary stone in situ. Whilst less than substantial harm, the result to the setting of the listed boundary stones, these are outweighed by the public benefits that will result from the scheme. Historic England and the Council's Conservation Officer raised no objections. As set out in my report, the impact of the development on the landscape and Oxford view cone have been assessed, and officers consider this to be acceptable, subject to a condition to approve a lighting strategy for the western access. Council, as ecologist, raises no objections to the proposals, subject to a condition to approve the lighting proposals for the 5 connectivity bridges to ensure there is no detrimental impact of Barbastell bats on the Bayswater Brook corridor. The application proposals will comply with the local plan requirement for a net gain in biodiversity. This is to be provided on the main application site and will be secured by a condition. The proposed access infrastructure will be located within flood zones 3A and 3B. However, as they comprise elements of essential infrastructure where there are wider sustainability benefits in combination with the delivery of the land north of the Bayswater Brook site as a whole, and the fact that continuous safe access will be provided in times of flooding events, the exception test is passed. The access infrastructure, the subject of this application, will be secured through a Section 278 agreements with the County Council. In conclusion, accordingly, the application is recommended for approval, subject to the conditions set out in my report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gordon. Right, public speakers. I have 3 representatives of the various parish councils. I propose to take them in the order of my paper. Does that agree with you?
I asked to go first because I've got lots of diagrams.
Yeah, you're first. You're first, and followed by Eugenie Buchan, followed by Andrew Clark. Yeah, okay.
There's no way of getting this big one. There's lots of maps and it's not going to be able to see them.
Table's further back normally, aren't they? Yes. Yeah. Becky, can we move the table a bit further forward as well?
This one.
Yeah.
Is that right, Chair?
Yeah, we often have difficulty hearing, so the closer it is, the better. Yeah. Oh, look, you've got
Well
that.
done, thank you. That's much better. Great.
You make it as big as possible.
No, it's gone.
Saw the first slide.
Doesn't like being on, is that right?
Yeah.
It's getting warm, too warm possibly. It's greyed out, it's not different colours.
Yeah, it's still on.
It's still on, but it's.
Oh.
So we prefer it being on the secondary
Yeah.
screen.
I think we'll have to go through that. The other one seems to be clicking itself off. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, we'll just give it a moment.
Hey, turn it off again.
Just so it can go on the secondary screen, because that was a bit bigger than the first, I thought.
What for that?
Yes.
The left-hand side screen showed a slightly bigger presentation.
Oh, it did, yeah, but it seems to be switching itself down. Yeah, we won't get anything now.
There
Oh,
we
yeah,
go.
no, it's going on that screen.
Thank you.
Okay. Right, we'll start your 5 minutes from when you start speaking.
Right. Good evening. Jeanette Camps-Walsh, Beckley and Stowood Parish Council, opposing this. Next slide, please. If you look at Strat 13, which is what you're judging this against, the important things are that there should be highway infrastructure that mitigates the impacts from land north of Bayswater Brook. The traffic modelling for this is totally inadequate, which I'll talk about a bit more. The road capacity is decreased, not increased. And very importantly for us, the existing residents have had no consideration whatsoever about how we're actually going to get about and get to our jobs. Next slide, please. Looking back, you won't be able to see this properly, but you'll get an idea. Looking back at the original local plan, this was the mapping for 2031. You can see it gets very, very busy around here. And that the original mitigation policies were a link road going from the Marsden flyover to the Lewes near Forest Hill on the A40, There's a slightly bigger version of that here, or reconfiguration and grade separation of the Headington roundabout. You're not going to see either of those this evening. Next slide, please. So looking at our local roads, we're very concerned because they're congested to overcapacity at morning peak hours as it is. So the Wood-Eaton Road over to the west, it takes between 45 minutes and an hour to get to the JR or Summertown. Elsfield Road is backed up to the village. Bayswater Road, it takes half an hour to do half a mile from the crematorium to the Headington roundabout in the morning, and sometimes even longer. And obviously there's a lot of backup on these roads too. So we're looking at real traffic problems already. Next slide, please. There is no increase in road capacity. Eugenie will be talking about the western access. I'll be talking about Headington roundabout. But my greatest concern is the Bayswater Road, because this is going to be narrowed and it will be really dangerous. Next slide, please. So the famous Very Ugly Bridge, this is what it looks like. There are connectivity problems. Terence, my colleague, is going to talk about cycling on it. Next slide, please. Its main problem is that it's far too far over to the west. So we've got the Marston flyover here. The bridge is going to be here, and the bus right next to the bus route. But then this is the length of the development, and there's no way to get across the A40 all the way along there. So it's not in the right place. Next slide, please. So the Headington roundabout, this is a major concern. There's no extra capacity on the Headington roundabout whatsoever. There's an extra lane coming in from the north, but that's going to be a bus lane. There's an extra lane coming in from the east, from Cowley, and there are traffic lights from the Bayswater Road. But all this is going to allow traffic onto the roundabout, but there's no extra capacity at all. So it's going to become gridlocked. Next slide, please. My biggest concern is about the Bayswater Road, because this is an HGV route and they're going to narrow it to 6 metres. So HGVs will barely be able to pass, and they'll probably go up on pavements. And they're doing this because they want to have a dual lane cycleway along the side, on this side where there are lots and lots of junctions for them to cross. At the moment it's on this side, which is much better. This is the bridge, and this is the access to land north of Bayswater Brook. They're going to have traffic lights there, but take away the mini roundabout. So they'll have preferential access onto the Bayswater Road and make the traffic queues longer. So we're very, very unhappy about this, and we'd like you to stop it. So you don't have to completely stop the planning application, but make them go away and think this out properly, because this is terrible. Next one, please. And we're also concerned about public rights of way.
Last 30 seconds.
This public right of way, the road, the bridleway and the footpath all join together, which is very dangerous. Last slide, please. So we would like you to tell them to take it away and come up with a plan that works and isn't dangerous.
Okay, thank you, Rich. Chris, have we got any questions for Councillor? Yes, Councillor.
Yeah, so just to refresh my memory, so with Bayswater Road, you talked about it being narrowed to 6 metres.
Yes.
Just explain that to me again. Is it because there's the two-way cycle path either side, or just explain?
Well, that's why they're doing it. At the moment, there is a cycle path. If you're going towards the Headington roundabout, it's on the left-hand side. And that's quite a good cycle path, because there are only a couple of junctions off that side of the road. So they can have and Terence, who's our cycle expert, will tell you more about that when he talks. But what they're doing is they're moving the cycle path to the other side of the road, but they want a two-way cycle path and a pavement for pedestrians. So, but they don't want to widen the whole thing. So they're narrowing the road in preference to the cycle path. But to be honest, whether cyclists would actually use that when there are so many junctions they've got to stop at, you can ask Terence that.
Okay, I don't see any further questions, so thank you very much for your presentation. Okay, Eugenie Buchan,
Thank you.
representing Ellsfield Parish Council.
Thank you very much. Let's whip through this. First slide, please. We have no illusions that this development is going to go away, but we do think that additional conditions may need to be attached in order to achieve the purposes that were set out by the local plan of delivering an environmentally safe, low car development in a secure setting. So the flood risk assessment, I'm going to come back to that. We want you to scrutinize all the proposals that are promoting car dependency and to review again the active travel proposals through a RAG rating to see which ones are really working to deliver this site. Next, please. Next slide. So I showed you the last time I was here how the water came onto the road. This is the water in the field. This is where the main road from the Ellsfield Lane will go through. It's your western gateway going across the site. If it were already built out, that road and the cycle path next to it would be submerged underwater. Next slide, please. That means this area is actually flood zone 1. Flood zone 1 is modeled as only having a 1 in 1,000 per PA or AP of being flooded. But in fact, we got 16.5 centimeters of rain in that field. So that greatly exceeds, you can't see that, but you would expect along here you'd expect along here 20 centimeters. You've got a hell of a lot of water in flood zone 1. It means that the developers have to go back and look very carefully at their modeling. This is not really about 1 in 100 flood risk plus climate change. The flood zone 1 is now more vulnerable than it used to be because with climate change, we're going to get more severe rainfall, the pluvial risk. Please change the slide. And if it had already been built out, that water would have run down and hit this area near the assisted living. So this is an issue that has to be taken very, very seriously. I want a condition put on that basically asks them, next slide, please, to go back and look at the flood risk and submit something to the council as a pre-commencement condition to make absolutely sure that everything is being done. Now, I wanted to show you exactly, this is going to be elevated, but this road into the site will not be elevated. It would have been wiped out in that flood. Next slide, please. Now, I'm changing the subject. Let's face it, the development is going to have an impact on local traffic. Sistra told us this in 2021. They showed exactly how additional traffic from the site would come down, creating blockages here. Their solution is just to put more signalization on the Marston interchange up here to control what they call conflicts amongst drivers. That isn't the real question how this is going to be controlled. It's like putting a Band-Aid on. The real problem is inside the site where parking provision and other measures are creating car dependency. Next slide, please. The proposed parking provision is going to prolong this. I don't wish to point the figure too much, but because the developers made a very strong case that a food shop would not be commercially viable, we don't have a food shop in the center of the site. We don't have a lot of other amenities. So I think we need a pre-occupation condition here that there will be one. They did that in order to
Last 30
avoid.
seconds.
Okay, they did that in order to avoid the parking restrictions. We need to have some sort of commitment that there will be proper amenities. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Have I got another slide? Oh, yeah. Okay. Can you go beyond that? Can you go to the next slide, please? That, I think, is an important possible solution. I don't like the bridge, but I have never understood why the turning that's for the bus lane could not be modified to take cyclists.
Okay, that's your 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Richie, are there any questions? Councillor Arlott.
Can I just ask one about the flooding there?
Yeah.
I did say at the last meeting, when we had the site visit, we finished up at the bottom of Barton Village Road.
Mm.
And a farmer came along. There was obviously a few people here were there. And he said this never used to flood here until they built the little estate as you go down Barton Village Road on the left-hand side there. According to him, who lived there for a long time, they never used to flood until those properties were built there a couple of years ago. Now, is that fact? Is it just started flooding now? Because
Oh, no. This is a different geology over here at the West End. I leave it to my colleagues to talk about the East End. At the West End, we have that field, which is very flat, has a very high groundwater. It floods regularly. Mr. Brown cannot plant in that field for months and months on end. He's the tenant farmer for Christchurch. He can't plant in that field. That's why it was going to just be left just for access and nothing else. But it is still flood zone 1 for the diagonally across.
Yeah, I understand.
And the water is going to just sheet down if we have another one of these events.
Okay.
So I've got another question as well.
I'll go to Councillor Beard. Okay. All right, go on.
So my next question on this, and actually Tim might be able to answer it anyway, is who is it down to carry out the maintenance on this brook? Like we looked at the brook, and all the way along I kept going in and having a look at it. And it looks to me it needs a hell of a lot of maintenance on that brook, especially when it starts getting some of the bridges that
I'm going to stop you there, Ken, as relevant. I think yes, it is relevant to that's the cause of flooding. But is it relevant to the application that is in front of us?
Well, I think it is. Otherwise, I wouldn't ask the question. So
we're talking about transport links, not flooding.
Oh, well, may I just
the flooding affects the transport.
Chairman, may I just make a point about that? You have several bridges now over the brook to go in to provide permeability with Barton Park. Lots of people are going to be using those bridges over. If there's flooding from the brook, it's going to interfere with their ability to get across it into Barton Park and into Oxford. Excuse me.
Right. Councillor Beard.
And indeed, we saw that just in September, didn't we? That those bridges that are existing there now were impassable. Just can you extrapolate on your last point about the cycle path coming into the bus turning? Can you just explain what you meant?
I think that there's a missed opportunity here. That could be slightly modified to give access for cyclists to cross the A40 there and go straight up. It's right next to the bridge. That bridge isn't really adding a lot in terms of direct access by bike or by foot into Oxford. It's landing you sit on the other side where, may be useful if you're going west, but not that great for going east. Most people are going to want to go through Barton Park anyway, because it's direct and it's downhill. But I'm saying, why not use that bus turning to also give access in there for cyclists? We need multiple points of access for cyclists and pedestrians. I did also want to say, but pedestrians get very short shrift in this. It's all about cyclists. We need a decent path down the Elsfield Lane on the west side for pedestrians separate from the cyclists. I better shut up now.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. Okay, the next speaker I have is Andrew Clark. 5 minutes to when you start speaking, Andrew.
Yes, I'd just like the slides that you had for Councillor Jeanette Camps-Walsh put up, please. Effectively. Sorry for misspelling. If you could put those up. Here we are. Okay, go to slide. I think it's either 4 or 9. The one on the Bayswater Road access. And we'll start. Yes, this one. Well, no, the larger one of this. I'll start talking about with the next one.
Excellent.
Next one. That's it. Right. Now, thank you. I'm Andrew Clark, Chairman of the Parish Council of Stanton St John. There are a number of strong points of objection that Stanton St John Parish Council have to this application. First, it's unlikely that anybody in Stanton St John, any cyclists, will be using the proposed bridge over the A40. We regard it as an unnecessary feature, as cyclists from Stanton are more likely to use the existing Barton Park junction, which is traffic lights, or the bypass, on the bypass, or under the underpasses, which go under the Green Road roundabout. So that is a waste of money as far as we're concerned. Second point, this junction here of the Bayswater Road at the bottom of the hill is dangerous. That's the first point. Accessing LMBV is potentially dangerous in its design. In this particular regard, cyclists coming down the Bayswater Road in this direction, where the road is narrowed, it's actually purposefully narrowed by design. It's created a cycle path on this side. Now, cyclists coming down will be on this side. The problem is there are two things, actually. Any large vehicle which is turning out from the LMBV development, turning and going up the road, will actually necessarily have to cross into the opposing carriageway. Now, if you're cycling down here on a wet day, your brakes on your bike are not going to work that well. And there's a real risk of actually a collision between any large vehicle, a 3-axled vehicle, a refuse lorry, a bus, or anything like that, turning out here, crossing over into this carriageway to get back, hitting somebody coming down with poor brakes on a bicycle. That's the first point. They only been minor in your view, but it's a realistic point. Okay. Now, the other point is the design, really. All the cycle routes are being put on this side, and the road is being pushed over and narrowed because of that. Now, with regard to cyclists, to get from this carriageway to this point here is dangerous. Okay. What I propose is that they redesign this so that access from this side comes down on this side of the road to join the Wainfleet Road here and go up this service road, which is a much safer route to go to the Green Road roundabout than trying to cross the road and go up here, because you've got many more junctions on that side. But this is a safe service road, which actually only has the individuals who live locally on that road that would actually use that. Okay, so that's a point between here and here, designed as a cycle route, will be much more safe than trying to cross the road and use the other access, and a lot cheaper. Okay. So there's the objection, creating that new cycle access. Third one, this area here floods. And this is the whole point about this access. It's in the wrong place. It's poor by design, and it needs features which are actually added to the western access point at Ellsfield, raising the road in order to stop the road from flooding. Now, if you have a flood here, I mean, at the moment, cars have to have single file, alternatively coming from different directions to get through the floods because of that. And cycling would be impossible in that situation. This access is in the wrong place because of that. It's far better if this were further up the road, near the crematorium, where there is an access proposed that actually is serving this development. It's safer, less traffic in the queue at that point. The risk from flooding doesn't exist there, and there's more room to be able to create a cycle path on either side. Now, fourth point is that there's a lot of heavy congestion up until 9:30 in the morning coming down this road. And what we're concerned about is Stanton St John, because this bit is in the parish of Stanton St John, is traffic coming out of here and turning left rather than going down and joining the queues for the Green Road roundabout, which is going to be heavily oversubscribed. When they come up here, there's likely to be, a good proportion of these 1,000 extra cars heading to the B4027, going through Stanton and going through Forest Hill as well. Now, we've had, there are 2 blind corners on this route, which needs to be some mitigation, and nothing has been paid in terms of attention to that in this proposal. That's the point I want to make there. We're trying to put a cycle route from the from Shepherd's Pit Road down to this junction to join up with whatever goes on down here. And the key point that I want to make with regard to that is that this is happening locally, and it's actually part of the Oxfordshire County Council travel plan. So it's actually not an idea that is just parish bound.
Okay, that's your 5 minutes. Thanks, Mr. Clark. Thank you.
Is that 5 minutes?
Yeah. Thank you. Committee, have we got any questions? Yes. Yes, one, Councillor Sadler.
I was a cyclist myself. Can you just explain what that's like, having so many access points along the road where the cycle path runs? Because I don't think I've quite realised. Could you just explain that?
Well, with regard to access points onto crossing the cycle path, effectively, for cyclists, it's an uphill going towards from the bottom of here up towards the roundabout. And with regard to those access points, the cyclists have to negotiate other vehicles on the road. Well, on the south side, on the north side, it actually is. There aren't any. There's just Wainfleet Road, which you then turn back onto the main Bayswater Road at the top end, closer to the roundabout. And so, actually, on this north side, which is actually at the bottom of the plan here, it will be far better. I'm saying to you now, this needs to be sent back to the designers to actually do it again, because quite simply, it's far cheaper to do that, and it's far better to have the cycle path on the north side of the road.
Right, thank you. Thank you, Alex. Thank you for your time. Okay. Right. I have 2 objectors, Terence Gold and Nicola Mallows.
Yeah, I'm
Cycle expert.
yeah, I'll be the full 5 minutes. I wasn't told I was sharing the 5 minutes.
No, 5 minutes between you.
No, I wasn't told that.
Well, I'll be very quick.
It's always the same. It's always the case.
It's always the same, but how do I know how to do a presentation if I'm not told how long it is?
But when you register, you'll be told it's 5
Well,
minutes.
We don't know who else
We
is
were not told.
objecting.
No, but then, yeah.
We were
Okay.
not told.
But it is 5 minutes between you.
Right.
Allow the parish council's extra.
I'll be very quick. Okay. I'm sure that the cycle will be explained. My main objection is the bridge, because I think it is an encumbrance on the A40. I think it squeezes the A40. It suburbanises it. It's stuck in the trees, which is going to be lights up high. And I think it favours e-bikes over pedestrians. I think it's in completely the wrong position. And it should be up by the Marston Bridge interchange, because everybody else is going to go via Barton Park. And you need to recognise that cyclists want to stay on the level if they can. Why should they double back and then go underneath on a squeezed road to go either north up to Banbury Road roundabout or back to Green Road? It's dreadful, and it needs to be redesigned. Second thing, very quickly, is to verify that this junction we've been talking about, incredibly dangerous. Why should a cyclist go over to the right-hand side and cross a junction with traffic lights, etc., just as they're getting some speed up to go up a hill? Absolutely ridiculous. It floods, it's incredibly dangerous, and the junction is not only narrowing and dangerous to pedestrians, but it's also extremely dangerous for lorries coming in and out. The traffic will go turning left out of it, go up onto the B4027 and take a quick route to the A40 or the A34. It's not on. It's a very badly designed scheme. So that needs to be redrawn with consultation to us, the villages, which has not been listened to so far. So please consider it, and I'm handing over to.
Thank you.
Right, well, I'm going to try and whip through this as quickly as I can. As I said,
Yep.
I was under the impression I was the only speaker. Nobody told me otherwise.
Just to clarify, the emails we did send out to registered speakers does state that it'll be 5 minutes per category.
It might be, but we
Yeah.
aren't told how many people there are.
Yeah,
And I was
we'll
under the
give you
impression I
time
was the
to
only-
make your presentation.
Right, so next slide, please. And the next. This is the junction we've just been talking about. We all know it's rubbish, it's dangerous. Cyclists want to have momentum, which this completely ignores, and it floods. The existing design is not actually that bad. People knew about bicycles in the 50s and 60s when it was designed. It's not that shabby. In fact, this is a retrograde step. Next slide, please. Here we see some detail up at the top of the Headington roundabout. We've got this absolutely ridiculous noodling going over separate traffic lights. Literally under your feet is the better solution, which was put in there 50 years ago, which was the underpass. That's what people are going to be using. Nobody's going to be using this nonsense. It's dangerous. In the central reservation here, virtually no room for a handful of cargo bikes, 2-3 cargo bikes. What happens when 5 people try to stop? They're going to be stuck, stranded in the road. I mean, how the hell this was designed is beggars belief. Next slide, please. Right, here we get to some really juicy, poor design. Actually, it's just plain right incorrect. So we have here a nice section view through a typical section, apparently with a nice narrow trees, but the plan view, you can see that the trees are overhanging the roads quite significantly. Next slide, please. And here is the real things from Google Maps. You can see it's actually an embankment. It's in a cutting. If you go back to the previous slide, you'll show it's flat. How the hell does that work? It's absolutely nonsense. In fact, what I suggest what's going to happen is that when they start to dig turf, they realise it's all gone wrong, and then they cut down trees and you get another episode like Plymouth Council had, where the head of council had to resign and they all got voted out at the elections because nobody likes having nice trees cut down, especially these cherry trees, which are beautiful in the springtime. Next slide, please. Again, this is at the West End. We've got really poor design. This is a downhill. Cyclists are going to want to go straight down. They are not going to noodle around this. If you were driven to have that choice with a car, which route would you take? You take the straight route, of course. You're not going to noodle around that. I mean, who the hell designed this? It's just an absolute idiot. Next slide, please. Slide. Traffic into Marston and Headington backed up typically every weekday morning. This is just inside the A40. Next slide, please. So this is Google Maps from the morning of when we should have been getting this originally last month at 8:30 in the morning. Next slide, please. So here we have the problem with all junction designs is that the traffic is completely backed up. West End completely backed up, East End completely backed up going into Oxford. No matter what you do with these junctions, they will not work because there is nowhere for the traffic to go. Doesn't matter how many more lanes you've got, they're just facing static traffic. Next line, please. Slide. So here we go. This is at the West End. As you can see, one lane. If you have 3 lanes here, still can't go anywhere. It's not going to work. It's rubbish. So, I mean, I was looking at this thing. How next slide, please. How can these stats be so bad? So, and it's sorry, this was just proving that it's going to get worse. Next slide, please. So here it proves that about a quarter of the housing is not for Oxford and they're going to be driving out of away from Oxford. So why have we got the houses in the first place there? These destinations and modes are Strat 13 assumed, they're not calculated, not baseline Barton Park data. Next slide, please.
Right, you've got 30 seconds.
Thank you. Arrivals for work and for shopping. These are in the calculations for the traffic calcs. There are no shops. There is no work at this place. So what's all that about? Next slide, please. And indeed, the traffic modelling is based on things like 28 bungalows in Bournemouth. LNPB stands for the Land North of Bournemouth Bungalows, apparently. Next slide, please. And so it can be a zero car development. Average walking speed is 3 miles an hour, which is 1,200 metres, not the 800 metres that's being quoted in the planning. Flooding, we've gone through this countless times. Next slide, please.
Okay, I've given you 5 minutes.
No, give me a bit more, please. You know, this is planning. This is in the traffic counts. You've seen already. It shows it's not flooding here. It is. That was flooded on the.
Okay, that's your time.
No.
Yeah.
So, in summary, I am summarising.
Yes, you've had 5
The
minutes.
design is poor. You can read these. I would also like to point out that the objections that have suddenly melted away still exist, but there may well have been letters sent from KCs and whatever else have you saying that you
Right, stop, Mr. Gold.
cannot.
Yeah, it's your time up. Thank you.
But they can.
Right, I've no question. I'm not taking questions. Sorry.
What, are you going to withhold information?
Go on. One question.
But the other speakers have said that you're the cyclone expert about the bridge. It's, what views do you have about the placement of the bridge?
It goes to nowhere. That's the odd thing. It's if the mid-span of the A40 is a destination, then great. It's just going to nowhere. We all know that. You know, Oxford City should have put a straight line straight into Oxford, pointing into the centre of town. Then that would have worked really well. Would have been great. But there isn't. It's like they've designed a bridge and decided, oh, Christ, it doesn't go anywhere. And that's it. Other aspects are it's actually dangerous on the curves. I spotted in the calculations. I'm an engineer, sorry, so I love this nerdery. At 9 miles an hour is the assumed speed of a cyclist on this bridge. That is the line of sight that they have for 9 miles an hour. An e-bike goes 15.5. Miss Marple will be doing 15.5 miles an hour on her e-bike. And you're mixing this with pedestrians, and it's weird wavy, so you can't see. You don't have a line of sight. I mean, it's madness. This is detailed design, supposedly. I mean, it's just madness.
Yeah,
sure.
Could I just ask a question? Are you a traffic consultant?
No.
You're not. Over about 30 years on council, I've been through numerous consultations on traffic and specialist companies. And it's amazing, the ordinary man in the street always seems to think, I'm not saying you do, always seems to think that they're correct and the consultants are. So I don't understand why you're going around calling consultants idiots. I don't think that's.
I'm not calling them idiots.
You did use that word. I don't think you've done yourself any favours tonight by that kind of attitude. I think the previous 3 speakers have given absolute brilliant talks of what's going on here. And you just seem to have come along and accusing people of being idiots. I don't understand that. That's not why it works. I'm sorry. You don't need to answer that.
No, I couldn't say that question. Right, thank you for your presentation. I think we're not seeing for the question. We will ask those questions of the county authority, well, the experts. Right, I've got one further speaker before we move back to the planning officer, and that's Gavin Angel, who is a supporter. Thank you. And you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. Thank you for approving the main hybrid application, which we're excited to take forward. However, in order to deliver the development of these much needed homes, the application now being considered provides the transport infrastructure to bring forward the development in a carefully phased manner. The package of detailed access proposals for Bayswater, following on from the Oxford City consent last month, and are integral to providing sustainable and active travel options for the development. These access facilities also support the regeneration of Barton, connecting the Barton community to newly created significant green spaces and promoting well-being for all residents. The focus of the transport strategy and measures proposed as, in accordance with Strat 13 policy and county transport policies, prioritised access by active travel modes, and then public transport, and finally by car. The pedestrian and cycle bridge over the A40 is a centrepiece of this strategy. Designed by Sterling Prize-winning architect Wilkinson Eyre, the location of this bridge has been carefully considered in consultation with the County Council. It is located so that it will offer a grade-separated, high-quality crossing designed for the use of residents of Bayswater, but also Barton and Barton Park, linking them to Headington, the hospitals, the Swan and Cherwell schools, and the city centre. This infrastructure will ensure safe and efficient movement over the A40, a key concern of local residents during consultation. It came up on a number of occasions about the at-grade crossing at Barton Park and current safety issues with that. So I don't accept that the bridge won't be used by residents looking to cross the A40. The design of the bridge is compliant with design standards set out in LN 120. The ramp on the Bayswater side and main deck are 5.5 metres wide and segregated with 2 down ramps on the city side being 4 metres wide, shared ramps due to the constrained nature of the landing point. Options for providing LN 120 segregation on the ramps have been explored with your officers and the County Council, but discounted due primarily to the impact on important tree groups. The bridge has planters for the whole length, and which will be maintained by the Bayswater development. Also, in the detailed design, significant forward sight has been demonstrated through the design of the balustrade. 2 public transport bridges will prioritise bus services, providing faster, greener travel between Bayswater and the city centre, and Bayswater and the John Radcliffe Hospital. These bridges will support a reduction in car dependency and encourage the use of sustainable transport. With the proposal for a new bus link between Northway and the A40, the public transport strategy at Bayswater is strongly supported by the local bus companies. The Barton Village Road public transport bridge will also provide for pedestrian and cyclist movements. There are 5 pedestrian cycle bridges over the Bayswater Brook within these proposals, 2 of which will significantly improve public rights of way. All new bridges are designed above current flood level, ensuring dry access year-round and integrating the development with Barton and Barton Park. The western and easternmost bridges allow for segregated pedestrian and cycle movements, while the 3 central bridges allow for a 4-metre wide shared path and are all designed to the appropriate LN 120 standards. These bridges will be maintained by the Bayswater development. Consideration has been given with all the bridges to minimise impact on ecology, with sensitive lighting, box culverts with mammal shelves where required, and limiting any tree loss to a minimum. The final form of lighting and design of the parapets will be considered further at the detailed design stage to provide an optimal balance between providing safe pedestrian and cycle access whilst minimising impact on ecology. The vehicular access points at Bayswater Road and Elsfield Lane also provide priority for pedestrians and cyclists. All accesses have been independently safety audited and county audited. The western access will include improvements at the Marston interchange and raise Elsfield Lane above the flood level with additional flood relief culverts, ensuring resilience to future climate risk. The Bayswater Road junction, the signals ensure that there will be no conflict with left turn out, and the 2-way priority on the Bayswater Road for cycling will improve access up towards the Green Road roundabout, where the addition of an overpass along with the underpasses gives other alternatives to crossing the Green Road roundabout. The overarching focus of these access arrangements is to promote sustainable, low-impact travel options, and we are proud that Cyclops is supportive of the travel strategy. By prioritising active travel such as walking, cycling and bus use, and by integrating communities with access to schools, healthcare and green spaces, Bayswater and its access proposals fully aligned to policy Strat 13 sets a clear example of sustainable development on the edge of Oxford.
Okay, last 30 seconds.
Last 30 seconds. Excellent. Thank you. I would also point out that Active Travel England, Cyclops, the Environment Agency, Sistra, the county, have all reviewed the applications submitted and are all supportive. So I thank you for your time and ask that you follow your officer's recommendation to grant planning permission and thereby enable the delivery of this exciting development.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Angel.
Thank you.
Richie, has anybody got any questions? Councillor Beeler.
The bridge, how much did that cost to, how much do you think?
Is that it's not a planning matter, sorry.
It is.
It's not much.
It's because
cost is not a planning consideration. Sorry.
Yeah, because if they might have been able to afford alternatives across the A40. So, all right, Arsenal. Why is it where it is?
Well, it initially started close to the Marston flyover bridge. It was then moved further west in terms of picking up more transport from existing Barton and Barton Park communities, particularly to bring them over the A40 because of concerns over crossing, surface crossing safety issues.
Why isn't it at grade crossing where there are concerns about?
Why?
I think a good question.
Because residents, as you said, are very concerned about crossing the A40 and have been up in arms, and there's been lots of articles in newspapers.
Yes, and accidents. Yeah.
That's where the residents of Barton Park cross, and people will be coming through. That's where the centre of this new development is. Why isn't the bridge there?
Well, I don't accept it as where I mean, obviously, there's a benefit to Barton and Barton Park of this bridge. Obviously, the bridge is coming from our land across the A40. That's the location of it. As opposed, I'm not sure what you're asking, that it should be located
at the at-grade crossing, which is where people are crossing currently. So that people at the at-grade crossing wouldn't have to go across the road at grade, they could use the bridge.
Yeah. But that would be for Barton Park to deliver.
I'm not sure we're getting anywhere, Councillor Bearder. I think you can direct your question at the next speaker, next consultant. Are there any further questions? Yes, Councillor Stanley.
In terms of, and I've got to be a bit careful here because I don't have 30 years worth of planning experience and traffic management. But I'm going to ask the question anyway, because I'm a cyclist, and when I've gone down cycle paths, it's always these side roads that have priority. And it does seem to me that if they have a perfectly good cycleway along the left-hand side, which cyclists will tell you that's great because there's not any crossing points. Why on earth would we put it on the right-hand side where it has to cross junctions where the car automatically has priority over the cyclist? So what you often find is a curb which is slightly lowered so that the cyclist can cross, but they can't do that if there's a car coming.
So just to reassure you then, because it may not have come across, you may not have picked it up, because there's a combination of this application plus the proposed 278s that are, what we are doing is on that side of the Bayswater Road, we have a priority two-way cycle route. So it takes priority over the cars coming out of all of those side roads. So it's a significant improvement. And the reason it's located on that side of the road is because at the top of the road, the crossing of the Green Road roundabout through both the proposed new surface crossing, but also the existing underpasses are on that side of the Bayswater Road. So those are the reasons.
Okay, so thank you very much. Any other question?
Well, one question. The bridge is very nice, but it's a bit of if you're a cyclist, and like Councillor Saddle, I've been a cyclist, and still am. It's a bit of a dog leg, isn't it? If you're coming from, if you're coming out of this the development and you're heading towards the centre of Oxford, you want to go in a straight line as far as possible. I mean, with this stuff, as far as I can tell, certainly from the this development, we come straight up onto the bridge, but then you're sort of going along the A40 for a bit. Was it going to be possible to
go into Oxford and take more? There's a nature reserve immediately to the north of the bridge, and there's the existing tree belt that's along there. So in fact, one of the reasons that bridge has been designed as wavy is to maintain as many of those trees as possible. And brings you back to the access that will take you up through to the Swansdown and Cherwell and existing cycle routes through there.
Of course, as a cyclist, you're not obliged to cycle routes, are you? You go very often. Stick to the main roads, are usually a bit faster, aren't they? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Angel. Thank you very much for your time. Right. Forget her name now.
Katie, County Council.
Yeah.
Is Ham.
Yeah. That's right. Before we go back to the planning officer, I'd like to bring in Katie Hammer, who's the Oxfordshire County Council road officer. Sure, you've got some questions for her. Yeah, Councillor Howard. All right. Katie.
Yeah, I did ask a couple of questions last time. Are you aware of the traffic consultant on the application? Have they carried out any traffic flows, like computing models on which way traffic goes?
Absolutely, yes. So I hope so. Yeah. So the applicant obviously has got their transport consultant who undertook the transport modelling, and they actually also had a third party microsim modelling expert that undertook their microsim model of the whole area, which is just a computer simulation model.
Yeah, I've seen them.
Yeah, which will tell you all about journey times, delays, and the impacts on all of the different what we call nodes, junctions through the modelled network. And so we were able to take that as a county and assess that, and then we had that third party assessed by a separate modelling consultant that we commissioned as well. So all of the modelling that has been undertaken, we are, as I said last time, at the outline application, we are satisfied that it's robust and it's fit for purpose, and that the impacts have been assessed accordingly, and we are accepting the post.
No, thank you for that. Okay. Can I ask one first? Yeah, okay. Because we've heard lots of people talk about the location of the bridge, and we are told that it's there because the county council wanted it to be there. Could you explain that to us, why it's in a location it is, and it's not by the Green Road roundabout or further over?
Yeah. I mean, firstly, in my professional capacity, I actually think that the bridge is in the optimum location. The fact that you've got the bi-directional ramps on the southern side means that people are not going to be backtracking and going down in the ramp one way and then having to kind of go back the other way. I think that the main fundamental points that we looked at were, yes, the issue of the trees. So Mr. Angel's already mentioned that we had to look at the constraints. There was some specimens in the central reservation and on the southern side that we had to take account of. But also, people have mentioned, why isn't it close to the Barton Park access? Well, when we're looking at designing infrastructure such as this, we have to take into account many things in terms of the existing road network, and all of the infrastructure has to be designed to design manual for road and bridges, and that means that we have to have specialist distances for the restraint systems that surround the bridge, and we have to have special distances for right-hand turns into the bus access, for example. So all of that has to meet specific safety standards, and to have it that close to the Barton Park access just would not have worked. We wouldn't have got those safety standards in place. So that's another reason as to why it had to be in the place that it was.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Beader.
You said that there have been lots of studies of the traffic movements in and out of the site. What is the trip number from this development?
I'd have to, I can't remember off the top of my head, I'm afraid. I don't have that specific detail to hand, Tim. What we have done is that we've modelled, so we've got the trips data, so we've looked at all of the trips that have come out of the site using the industry-wide software that we have available to us. We have then taken that data and said, okay, all of this mitigation that you're putting in place, what is that going to do to the trips? And we've agreed with the applicant that we are able to reduce their trips coming out of their site, and we can then monitor that over time. And we've then identified extra bits of infrastructure that we can say, okay, if you are going above your threshold trip rates that we've agreed, we can then get them to implement this infrastructure, and that's going to be monitored over time. But it's certainly not going to be, 1,450 cars. That's not how it works. It as a general rule, you end up with a trip rate of more like 0.5 trips per dwelling. It doesn't equate to just you've got 1,450 houses, therefore you're going to have
700.
Yeah, so it's going to be in that
because trip numbers is the headline LTCP target, isn't it? So
yeah,
we will know what trip numbers are, won't we?
Yes, absolutely, yes. So as part of the mitigation package that we're going to secure through the 106, we will have threshold tables in there that we will be monitoring and annually reviewing every year. And those trip rates will be what the developer is being assessed against, and we'll be monitoring their accesses using ANPR cameras and what we call vivacity data sensors on the network.
Because last time you said that this development wouldn't make our trip reduction targets harder, but if it's putting in, say, half trip number per house, so 700 trips per day, that is 700 additional trips onto the network that we haven't currently got. So presumably other areas of Oxfordshire will have to make a reduction of more than 700 to meet our target.
I think the way that transport assessments work, the fact that we've got to, we need to support the planning industry, and we have to be working with developers in order to try and bring development forward. That's the whole point of the planning industry. But the fact that we've got so many unknowns at the moment, so looking at all of the other local plan sites that are coming forward, and the transport environment is evolving around Oxford because of things like the traffic filters, anything in the central Oxfordshire travel plan. Therefore, it's important that we are monitoring these, and it's through mitigations like this that we're going to be able to realise that trip reduction. I don't think we don't expect it to happen overnight. But
yeah, so there's other unknowns, other parts of Oxfordshire, but they will have to compensate for these additional trips, as well as the reductions of a 25% by 2030.
A planning application has to just show that it mitigates its impact, and that's what we have looked at with this site, and we are satisfied that this development is mitigating its impact in traffic terms and what it's providing.
Puzzled faces. Are there any further questions? Can I ask you, Katie, about the road onto the Bayswater Road? I've heard a lot about that not being the best design. What's your comments on that?
Yeah, so the Bayswater Road, as I think we've already heard tonight, the fact that you've got the access on the right hand side, and then you've also got the at-grade crossing that the applicant is providing. So it means that cyclists will be on the same side of the road. I think it's really important to stress at this point as well that I've spoken tonight about mitigating the impact of the development, and yes, I appreciate there will be cyclists coming from Beckley, so coming from further down Bayswater Road. However, unfortunately, it's not for this application to justify and to provide cycling infrastructure along the whole of that road. This is for mitigating the impact. So to ask for extra infrastructure further up the road, I wouldn't be able to justify doing that in terms of the three tests.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Yeah.
So yeah, in our respect, we think that it's on the right side.
Nobody's asking for it.
And the
Sorry.
And the priority crossing with the cycle path as well will give priority over all of those side road junctions as well.
Okay, all right. Any further questions, this officer? Yes.
So the speakers are commented about the Headington roundabout. At one point, there was a plan for it to be multi-level, multi-grade and things. I'm not that familiar with it, but has it been redesigned and rebuilt in recent years, like the other the ones by the Hayford Hill roundabout seem to be redone and further round? Has the Headington one been redone in that sort of way?
I can't tell you how many years ago it was, but certainly the Headington roundabout was re-engineered several years ago,
right,
with the hamburger style roundabout. So you've got the road that goes through the central section through the central island. So yeah, that would be existing under these proposals. It's just
so you may be reasonably satisfied how it works.
Yeah, so again, the modelling outputs with the changes that the applicant is proposing, we've looked at the levels of service, and I think, yes, while some arms, the delay would go up slightly, you've got other arms such as the Bayswater Road arm, that would be significantly improved. So looking at it in the balance, and we've considered public transport access through that junction as well, that is significantly improved.
Councillor Beard has a question.
So you said that you're going to be monitoring the trips. You think this infrastructure going in now will mitigate the immediate impact, but you'll monitor it, and there could be extra mitigation going in if it exceeds that. what extra mitigations are proposed?
So the extra mitigations are, there is an extra lane on the A40 approach from, if you're coming from Cutstow roundabout. You've got an extra lane on the eastern bypass, which is if you were coming from Forest Park. There is some signalisation of the Marston interchange planned as well on the southern side. So the other bits off my head. But yeah, they're the main ones, certainly the two on the Hillington roundabout. So we can call upon those, but we would describe those as road capacity improvements. And as you know, in our policy 36 of the LTCP, we want road capacity improvements to be a last resort. So we will certainly be monitoring and looking at whether there's other ways that those costed schemes could be spent instead of providing those road capacity improvements as well.
Okay, all right, committee. I think it's time to move on to our main planning officer to questions to the planning officer. We don't seem to have it. Come on then, Peter. You answer my question. After all that.
Last time.
No, you've got a free. Okay then, committee. Well, I've got one additional name on here, but he's sat over there. You're down as the ward councillor.
Oh, I won't speak to my ward.
Your ward councillor. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So I'm looking for a proposal then. Councillor Roberts.
Yeah, I'll propose officer recommendation.
Thank you very much. That's seconded. If it's not, I'll second it. Okay.
I might speak.
You can speak.
Yeah. I think firstly, as I said before, I think we've had some excellent speakers, but well, the majority anyway. And I was feeling very sympathetic at one time, and until one speaker started calling the expert idiots. And I think sorry if that was aimed at you as well. Katie, I'll apologise for the gentleman. I think the questions we've asked you on transport, I think you've answered all of those expertly. I think you've given excellent answers for them. As I said, I've been through numerous traffic consultancies like this, and the public do. I was one of the public at one time. And we all think we know better. Maybe some people do. Maybe occasionally these traffic experts do get it wrong, but the majority of the time they get it right. And I'll just give you one instance where I live in Elizabeth Road in Henley. They've just built 200 odd houses in Highlands Park, and everybody said all the traffic would come down Elizabeth Road. But there was no point because it wasn't a rat run. It would have taken about another 5 minutes. And we've seen absolutely built about 200 houses now, and we've seen absolutely no difference whatsoever. And I agree, when we talk about 1,450 houses, we are looking at a lot of car movers, and I would accept that. But I think the answers we've been given, justify the committee supporting this application, and I can see no reason why we should consider refusing it. So I support the officer recommendation, Chairman.
Thank you. I'll let the committee speak before I speak a second there, but so I can open the debate. Councillor Beard.
So the fundamental problem with this is that there are too many cars on this development. And so the infrastructure proposals are always going to be on a hiding to nothing. But they could have been done so much better. What Councillor Janet Walsh said at the beginning was that the original proposal was a £70 million bypass around the back of Sandhills, which was when we were having the predict and provide policy at the county council, which we changed to a decide and provide policy. However, the implementation of that has been so bad, we've effectively let the developer, in this case Christchurch and their partners, off the £70 million development, and without implementing what the inspector said in the planning inquiry, which was an ultra low or zero carbon development. He said this with its proximity to Oxford could be that. We've got, to my view, the bridge is entirely the wrong place. I was the cabinet member for highways at the beginning, the first a year of our term running the county council, we had protests in the paper. We had people with placards down at the at-grade crossing saying that they couldn't safely across there. There needs to be a bridge there. I spoke to officers about the cost of bridges, and they say a bridge about this should cost about 3.5 million. Now, the bridge that we've seen clearly doesn't cost that. Now, I expect that is incumbent on the land. It's talked about the land available, but there should have been some agreement between the city, the developers, Barn Park, so that we could get a bridge, maybe a smaller bridge, but a bridge across the at-grade. But for 3.5, we could have several bridges. And this is a very long ribbon development. It clearly needs several bridges across it. And I'm still embarrassed by the county's approach, and I'm not criticizing you, Kate. I know you're verbalising what the officer corps generally feels, but the fact that we have a stupidly ambitious plan to reduce the number of car trips by 2030 and half by 2040, it means that any cars, if a single car trip was made out of this thing, that is an additional car trip that we haven't got currently. And we want to reduce it by a quarter, and we're building 77,000, 100,000 houses by the mid-2035s. So it's going up by a third in Oxfordshire, and we want to reduce car trips by a quarter. So where we have the opportunity to seriously reduce car trips, like edge of city sites, hermetically attached to Oxford, benefiting from those excellent cycle links, it should have been an ultra car development, and it simply isn't an ultra car development or ultra low car development. We know that we've got money set aside for extra mitigation should this become problematic. Everybody knows it will become massively problematic because you'll have 1,400 people with their cars on this development who will want to leave via two small roads either end. And so they're joining infrastructure is already at capacity, already takes an hour in those mornings. And the reason why it's massively backfired is we've gone for this predict and provide, and the developers have gone, oh God, well, that means we'll design it in such a way that it can't possibly have be a zero car development and not put any food shops on the thing. So actually, everyone will have to drive off to go to Tesco's on the Ring Road or Sainsbury's at the other end. So in actually fact that the policy change from the county council done with the best possible intentions has been so poorly implemented, it's going to make it massively worse. We're in a very difficult position because we signed it off, and the Oxford City have signed this off. I mean, I would personally like to see certainly the cycle path on the Bayswater Road. The fact that it can't extend slightly beyond the red line of this development is just appalling. How we can have a development sitting in a community that can't reflect the needs of that community that are going to be made significantly worse by its imposition is just appalling. I don't know how this society has got to this stage where we can't extend the cycle path a little bit up the Bayswater Road to enable the villages of Forest Hill, Bayswater, Stanton St John, Earlsfield to get safely into Oxford. But apparently we can't. So I will vote against this.
Thank you. Is there any further debate? Councillor Sadler?
It's probably not quite as well thought through as what Tim said, but in terms of, and I think everything you do with traffic modelling is great. Of course, I've got total respect for how that's looked into and your qualifications and everything else to do with that. But it was interesting the point you made about the infrastructure and how there might be some more infrastructure for car modelling and different lanes and so forth. Sort of made me think really, in terms of the cycle infrastructure, if there was more money to just go and put an extra lane in somewhere, you wonder why there isn't much more money available for putting extra cycleway infrastructure in, which I would have thought would be a lot cheaper, much cheaper to maintain in the long term, and you know, a permanent good. It's you know, it's not just adding to the same old problem of more and more cars. If you want people to cycle, then you have to put some really good infrastructure in. That's what we're really missing in this country. If you go around most other European countries, they seem to do this right, and we don't. And it must come down to money. It can't come down to modelling and people's lack of imagination. I don't think that is the problem. It must come down to money ultimately. That we're prepared to put more money into roads and infrastructure, but not cycle infrastructure. I'm conflicted about the bridge, if I'm honest, because I can see that you know, bridges offering access to cyclists and pedestrians across busy roads, that's got to be a good thing. And it was interesting, the whole wavy design. I get it completely, and I think, you know, yeah, if you're traveling at speed, that could be an issue. So there might be some things that could be done there, but yeah, I still think the cycle path up Bayswater Road seems to be a real problem.
Yeah, well, as a cyclist, and I was once a member of a cycle campaign in London cycling campaign, where we campaigned for cycle routes. Really, the reality is that most cyclists prefer to cycle on existing roads because they're much faster, and the more people who cycle on roads, the better it is for all road users, because the overall traffic speed could be lower, safer for pedestrians, and if more motorists actually switched got out of their cars onto their bikes, it would be much better for all of us, and for the environment, and for the world, and for climate and everything. So while I understand there's always a need and demand for cycle routes, and so that other people can get on their bikes while I can sit in my car and get to somewhere a bit faster, I think we just have to be, you know, perhaps be a bit tougher and restrain cars, and that way, yes. So, you know, cycle routes are all very well, but still, I think that's not always the answer. So I also would just add that I'm always been very cynical about traffic road engineers. When I was at school many years ago, I remember there was a scheme in Oxford to build a road across Christchurch Meadows from Speedwell Street to the Plain, and that gave an interest in road planning, and I'm sorry to say a sort of a slight cautiousness about hearing what traffic engineers say, because all the experts at that time were saying we need this road, and of course it was then proved that you didn't need the road at all. Anyway, but in this case, I'm happy to accept the what we've got here, because I think much in the last 50 years, traffic engineers and road engineers have been much more sophisticated. So I would support this proposal.
Thank you, Peter. There have been no further debates. As a seconder, I suppose I have to speak, and I think it's a difficult one, this one, because it's such a big proposal, and there are so many aspects to it. There's just one bit you could complain about, but overall, I think it's acceptable. I can't say it's a brilliant scheme. I think it's acceptable. Whether I like the bridge or not, I don't know. Whether it's in the right place or not, I don't know. We've got to take the advice of the experts, and the experts in this case are the county council. So we've got to take their advice, and that they want it there, so that's that. People say it doesn't lead into the town centre, but it does lead to the hospital. It does lead to that part of Oxford, where probably, hopefully, a lot of the people that live there were working. So they're not necessarily wanting to get into the centre of Oxford. So it is possibly the right place. And I encourage you to just support this aspect. We have actually passed, last time we did actually agree that the whole development was right. This is just the transport infrastructure to support that development. And therefore, yes, I urge you to vote for it. Right, I'll go now to Councillor Arlott to sum up.
Yeah, just pick up a few points that have been made. I'm not so looking to Councillor Dragonetti on his cycle routes, but I was unaware you cycled this evening from Goring.
I'm a keen cyclist, but I'm not mad.
Exactly. Right. And that's why I think, we're discussing, local routes around here. We're not talking about people, cycling 20 or 30 miles, but I accept what you say. We are, planning is difficult. And that's why we have obviously planning committees and we're here this evening and, we do come up with different views and, I can totally understand that. I was most impressed with the answer that I was given by the officer, and I've said that before. We heard obviously from the objectors on different items what's being proposed in front of us. But as far as I'm concerned, I can only make decisions on what I hear, what I see, and that's why I'm supporting the application. And we are in a poor position. Oxford City Council, as Councillor Beale said, they've already passed this application. I would probably actually personally like to see the two applications together. The one we discussed a couple of weeks ago and this one. That would have been very interesting if both these would have been together. We may have come out with a different outcome, and we may even this evening. Who's to know? But I think there's enough in this application to favour what's being proposed, and hopefully, well, I'm pretty sure there won't be that much damage to the area there. My bigger concern, which was the mention I made before, was the brook, and I don't know if that's down to OCC Highways or the environmental agency, but someone should be clearing out that brook to make sure it doesn't flood. And I think we can make a mention of that somewhere in the minutes of this application. Other than that, I look for the support to support the officer's recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hart, for your summing up. We'll go straight to the vote. All those in favour of the proposal for acceptance application, please show. 5. That's 5. All those against. That's 2 against. The motion is passed. Carried. Thank you. I think we'll have a 5-minute break.
Bertie, do you mind pausing the
Okay, thank you, Bertie. All right, we'll move on to agenda item 8, P22 S4550, Wick Farm Buildings, refurbishment of the buildings. And our planning officer in this case, which says on it, Phil Mill,
It's going to be Sarah of Cheshire.
but it's not, it's Sarah Cheshire. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. This is an application for listed building consent for works for listed buildings within the Wick Farm complex, which is subject of the full element of the hybrid planning application, for which there is a resolution to grant planning permission. The group of buildings are located towards the east of the site to which the hybrid application relates. So just in this area around here, if you can see where my cursor is. In considering whether to grant listed building consent, the decision maker is limited to considering the effect of the proposals on the character of the building's special, historic or architectural interest. The buildings for which listed building consent is sought are the Grade 2 star listed well house, just at the centre here, the Grade 2 listed barn, the north, and 2 further barns and an outbuilding which are curtilage listed. Just here. The listing description for each of the heritage assets are included within the committee report, and their significance is discussed at paragraphs 6.10 to 6.21 of the report. Listed building consent is sought for works to the buildings in association with works proposed to create a mixed-use local centre to serve the Bayswater Brook development. The works are predominantly repair works or minor works required to facilitate the proposed new uses. In relation to the Grade 2 star listed well house, listed building consent is sought for repair works comprising repointing, repairs to stonework, resetting of missing cornerstones and repair of internal line render, installation of new glazing in existing window openings and replacement of modern timber door with a new glazed door, the installation of new radiator and picture rail with integrated power supply, the installation of a new glass floor over the well, and the removal of external concrete abutting the building. These are the proposed elevations and the proposed floor plans. In relation to the Grade 2 listed barn, listed building consent is sought for repair to works to the stonework, weatherboarding and roof, including reinstating a thatched roof, installation of new glazing and doors in the existing openings and the formation of new window and door openings, and the removal of modern concrete internal partitions. These are the proposed elevations and the proposed floor plans. In relation to curtilage listed building A, listed building consent is sought for repair works to the stonework and the roof, and the installation of new windows and doors, and the formation of new window and door openings, the installation of new timber cladding to the gable ends, and the installation of new internal partitions to create toilet facilities. These are the proposed elevations and the proposed floor plans. Curtilage listed building B, listed building consent is sought for repair works of the stonework and roof, the replacement of existing doors and the installation of new windows and doors, and formation of new window and door openings, and the formation of 3 dormers on the west elevation, and the installation of vertical timber cladding across the east elevation, and new internal partitions to create a workshop, toilet and storage. So these are the proposed elevations and the proposed floor plan. And finally, in relation to curtilage listed building C, listed building consent is sought for repairs to the existing stonework, raising of the height of the building with new stone walling and vertical timber cladding, and the infilling of the open west elevation with vertical timber cladding and glazing, and the replacement of the roof structure and covering. Insertion of new windows and new internal partitions to create a toilet and storage, and the construction of a small extension on the east side of the building, finished with timber cladding and a sedum roof. These are the proposed elevations and the proposed floor plan. Officers are satisfied that the application includes a proportionate description of the significance of the listed buildings and curtilage listed buildings and a detailed assessment of the proposed changes to the buildings. There is no objection to the proposals from Historic England or from the Council's Conservation Officer. The proposals would result in no harm to the Grade 2 star listed well house or to the curtilage listed buildings. There would be a low level of less than substantial harm to the Grade 2 listed barn, which paragraph 208 of the NPPF requires is weighed against any public benefits. The public benefits of the proposals include securing a long-term viable use for the buildings that would be consistent with their preservation and securing public access to the buildings. Officers consider that the public benefits would outweigh the low level of less than substantial harm to the Grade 2 listed barn. Overall, it is considered that the proposals would be acceptable and the committee is recommended to grant listed building consent, subject to the completion of a Section 106 agreement to secure the long-term maintenance of the well house and subject to the conditions listed in Appendix 2 of the committee report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay. A number of people registered to speak. The 3 town councils, pre-parish councillors, objectors and supporters. Parish councils, you are aware that you have 5 minutes between on this occasion.
No, we weren't told that.
Sorry?
No,
Sorry, we weren't told that.
You weren't told that?
No, that was wrong.
It was there for the last meeting.
Yes, but that's not.
Well, it's the same rules, isn't it? It's 5 minutes between.
I defer to either of you. I won't speak.
Well, then we won't be.
Well,
We're not after it anyway.
right, good evening again. This Wick Farm is in our parish, and 20% of our parishioners live next to it. 80 people, that is, so it's very significant to us. First slide, please. Okay, we haven't got first slide, please. The first point I'd like to make is that the concept plan says that there should be a local centre in the middle of the site for optimum access, and this isn't. This is to the east, and they're using it because they've got to do something with the Grade 2 listed barn. So it's not an optimum position. Next slide, please. We welcome the refurbishment of the listed barns. It's long overdue. There's no landscape buffer between Wick Farm and the Wick Farm Park site, which there should be, and I'll talk about that later. It's not a suitable mix of shops. There's a cycle shop, lots of places to drink coffee and play with your laptop, but no food shop, no GP, no dentist. There's contaminated land right next to it. And sadly, a lot of unemployment is already being created by turfing people out of the barns. Next slide, please. Now, we talked about the shops. So these are the so this is the well house. That is the existing barn, which is going to become a community place. There's another new community place going up there. This is what used to be a workshop, and the people have all gone now. That's going to be another community place. Then right on the border of Wick Farm Park, they're going to build another community centre, which really imposes on them. And this is going to be a cycle shop. So your food shop is this tiny little bit here, which might sell the odd carrot. And it's just simply not good enough for 3,600 people. Next slide, please. So there also should be a landscape buffer. That is in Strat 13, but there isn't one. We're suggesting that there must be one around here to protect the people who live at the Wick Farm Park. So you can see from the footpath, if you went up there, you can see into people's gardens. But particularly intrusive is all these buildings that are new along there. Next slide, please. So we're concerned about the demolition of the dilapidated buildings because there's been no vibration assessment whatsoever. And we need to have that for people and wildlife. And the noise is going to be horrendous. We're rehousing protected species. And as I've said before, the mix of buildings is just not at all what is needed. The design, they're going to have, wasn't mentioned, that they're going to have zinc doors and windows, which will look like refrigerators, which I think is particularly ugly and rather a shame. Next slide, please. So the protected species we're particularly worried about. The babistrel bats are not only protected, but they're very rare and they're very sensitive to light. So we're very concerned that the lighting is kept to a minimum. There are badgers on the site, and elsewhere on the site there are otters which will need to be moved. So we're very concerned that all those are managed properly. Next slide, please. Also, which you haven't heard about, is there's contamination. There's an old landfill site. In fact, there are two of them. There's one right next to Wick Farm, and that's got some really awful chemicals.
Last 30 seconds.
It's got mercury and asbestos, and that hasn't been properly assessed. And there's going to be a children's cycle track on top of it, so that needs to be properly assessed. Next slide, please. So what we're saying is that the additional buildings aren't needed and should be refused because they're making use of something just isn't appropriate for the Land North Bayswater Brook development.
Okay, thank you. Before I go for questions, are you aware that at the last meeting we did actually give planning permission for all these buildings? Planning permission was given. This is a listed building meeting.
But we've got a listed house, and you've got to, if you're trying to build in the curtilage of a listed building, then you need permission, listed building permission.
That's great. Well,
right. So, Councillor Arlen.
Yeah, I'll just say excellent presentation again. I wish I could do those. What makes you feel that there should be a retail shop there? Because I would have thought the majority of these farmhouse or buildings are mainly just for commercial use. Why do you think they should have a retail shop then?
I mean, I think we've already answered this. Are we trying to build a community or a dormitory? Because you've got all these places where people can have coffee and play with their laptops, except they're supposed to be working at the hospital. But nowhere for them to buy food. I mean, and as Tim said last time, if you look at Wheatley, which has got a similar population, they've got food shops, pubs, hairdressers, Indian restaurants, lots of things, and this hasn't got anything. I mean, it's just quite ridiculous, and it's going to mean that all the people there have to move out in their cars to go and get all these services. I mean, you're not going to go to the hairdresser on a bicycle because it would ruin your hairstyle.
Well, you speak for yourself, it wouldn't affect mine. I think Phil would struggle a bit as well.
Right. No further questions? No further questions. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Right. Right, so I have three objectors registered. One is Berkshire. I don't see Karen Fitzgerald. I don't.
Was earlier, actually.
Yeah, she's online.
She's online.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I've got a problem with the IT at the moment. So, but again, you have 5 minutes between you. That's Paul Loveridge, Karen Fitzgerald, and Nicola Mallows. You have 5 minutes.
I'll give mine up.
You're going to give yours up. So,
yeah.
Karen Fitzgerald and Nicola Mallows. Is Nicola? Yeah.
Well, I don't know, Karen. So mine, I'll be very brief.
Okay, Karen, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Yep, I'm here.
Okay.
Can you accommodate me?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Thank you. Okay. I'm very aware about listed buildings. I live in one, and it is about the setting of a listed building. And I think that I very much welcome that something will be done with Wick Farm. on the whole, the proposal's okay. The well is exceptional. This should be a focal point of some sort. And I think that that might happen there, but all these additional buildings, and in particular, the flat roofed, extended community, I think it's number 7 on the map. It's further down opposite the Wick Farm development. I think it is low level, ugly, and compromises Wick Farm Park. And I think it needs to be a more open space. And the other thing is that none of these buildings are actually providing a community shop, a little community shop, a focal point for people to come to. I want to remind you that Wick Farm is uphill. And if the whole of Barton Park and Barton and LNBB are all over 65, they're going to need to walk uphill to this place. They need to be able to have a good time. Otherwise, they're going to be coming in their cars. I don't see any parking. I don't see any access to this facility. I'm afraid to say, I think it should be turned down on the extra buildings that are appalling. Farm and well, good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Karen, it's all yours.
Okay, I just wanted to say the majority of the residents of Wick Farm, which is close to Barton, obviously, have lived here for many years and brought up their families in this very quiet, secluded rural setting. There are many young families here who live in the affordable housing and send their children to nearby primary and secondary school. Wick Farm Park is a mixed community of well over 70 residents, many working, some retired, and resident. We have a residents association here too. Wick Farm residents signed a petition back in May 2023 to halt the eviction notice for Christchurch for the existing businesses at Wick Farm. All of the ongoing businesses were very successful and thriving and had their businesses here for many years, and some now are unemployed. There is little employment within the LNBB development. Since July 2023, the Wick Farm buildings and the workshops have been left empty, uncared for, and behind metal railings. Many Wick Farm residents are extremely worried about their health and their mental well-being as the proposed development completes surrounding us. The proposed developments will destroy forever the farmed fields and the countryside and the wildlife. Our peaceful countryside will disappear along with the quiet walks for exercise on the footpaths, which bring all Barton and Wick Farm residents close to nature. Christchurch and the developers, as required in Strat 13, have not provided a distinct and accurate landscape buffer between Wick Farm Park residents to the proposed planned retail community commercial business on Wick Farm and the surrounding planned development. The proposed LNBB developments have planned for a children's play area at Wick Farm Park, on which contaminated land for many years. The land was used for waste, rainfall, and numerous springs in the surrounding farm fields wash all manner of contamination into Bayswater Brook. The proposed plan for the community care place near Wick Farm Park and Wick Farm housing is totally impractical. If there is to be a new community centre, it would make more practical sense for it to be in the centre district of the development, close to what is urgently needed: a GP surgery, mental health care centre, pharmacy, dentists, retail and food shops. Where are these vital services on the proposed plans? No rational thinking from Christchurch is planned in making the development of zero-car community. The proposed community centre will affect Wick Farm residents' mental well-being because of the total lack of privacy, ongoing loud noises and the loss of dark skies, which seriously affects the existing local endangered bats population. Yeah. Most worrying of all, Wick Farm residents' health and mental well-being is the extensive and long-term establishment, estimated 10-year plus, of piling, driving, vibration, noise and surrounding construction work, air and traffic pollution from the many years of construction of this proposed commercial retail business and surrounding planning development. Wick Farm residents are fearful that their health and safety and their properties will propose construction work and noise here.
Okay, thank you. That's your time up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That's your 5 minutes. Committee, have we got any questions for either of the speakers? I see none, so thank you very much for your time and presentation. Right, we'll go to Gavin Angel again, who's the supporter. Again, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you for the consideration of the hybrid and access proposals for Bayswater. This is the last of the packages of applications made to SODC. I first just want to address something with regards to retail on the development. As part of the consented development, it does include 500 square metres, that's over 5,000 square feet of additional commercial uses. So I don't understand where the misconception has come in, but that's in addition to the proposals in front of you of this centre development. I'd like to highlight the significant heritage and community benefits of the refurbishment of the listed buildings at Wick Farm. Grade 2 listed well house refurbishment, along with the Grade 2 listed barn and curtilage buildings, have been carefully designed by Purcell, renowned heritage architects. These improvements will not only secure the long-term future of these buildings, but will also remove the well house from the Historic England Heritage at Risk Register and bring public access to these heritage assets. There's considerable local interest in these historic buildings, as was demonstrated when they were part of OPT Open Doors event, and as such, public access to these buildings is a valuable benefit. The barn will be transformed into a restaurant, whilst the curtilage buildings will feature a co-working hub, a cycle repair shop, and a small retail space, creating vibrant new facilities for the new and local community. The well house will be a small gallery space, allowing space for artists to showcase their work, and the designs of the refurbishment are sympathetic to the historic fabric of the buildings, with the restoration of a listed barn's roof to its original thatch, respecting its historic integrity. These refurbishments will integrate the heritage assets into the development and community, offering cultural enrichment and social interaction. The careful restoration of these buildings should be given great weight, as it ensures the survival of important local history while creating spaces that serve modern needs. Indeed, these proposals are supported by Historic England and OPT. The works of the buildings have taken account of the ecology and specifically the barber straw bats found within the listed barn, where bat attic spaces will be constructed to allow the bats to still use the buildings as a roost. There is additional bat attic space within the co-working hub and bird boxes around the local centre. Neither Natural England or the SODC ecologists have raised an objection on the bat mitigation strategy for these buildings. This investment in heritage not only enhances the local architectural landscape, but also strengthens community ties, offering opportunities for connection and engagement with our shared history. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Committee questions, Councillor Arlott?
Yeah, I'm looking through these plans here. How many car park spaces are there?
Well, no, there are 17. Yeah, I mean, that was consented as part of the hybrid application as opposed to the listed building, but I believe it's around 17.
You say 70?
Yeah, no, 17.
So 17.
But I can confirm that, but it's not part of the application, this application in front of you today, but we can confirm what
it is. But you know, you can't do all this work and then know where to park, right? There's one of your plans here and it shows a 16, I don't know, about 50 chairs. Is that the cafe?
Yeah.
So you got 50 chairs and you got 17 spaces. You got staff there.
Well, the intention is that this is to be a facility for the local community as opposed to an attractor to bring people in by car.
And someone just said we got to walk uphill to get to this place.
Well, it's located on the bridleway, at level with Wick Farm.
That's a reasonable question.
I'm not
on those grounds. It's perfectly valid not to have quite loads of car park space.
Councillor Sadler, did you?
No, I didn't.
You didn't.
No.
Councillor Bealer.
I'm interested in the cycle shop. Are you going to? Is there something written in planning law that means it will in perpetuity be a cycle shop?
Not as far as I'm aware, no. I mean, it's the use pass. I mean, that's our vision for this area. So that's
It's like a retail pass, is it, or what?
It's probably do in terms of the change to new retail passes. Yeah.
So following on from the cycle shop, why is there no grocery shop there?
Well, so this area, as I've said, there's 500 square metres, just over 5,000 square feet of additional consented retail space within the wider development. When we were originally looking at the locations of centres for this, we had an area to the east of the site, which is effectively the Wick Farm area, which was slightly too far east, but we wanted to make sure we were using those heritage assets. So we've also introduced a community square, which is consented as part of the hybrid application, which is balanced, which is further to the west of the development and sits co-located with the new primary school, the assisted living, and there's ground floor usage there. So that's how we kind of balanced it out. We don't know yet what the 500 square metres of retail space is going to be. It probably is worth pointing out that there is a Tesco's, we understand, going in terms of Barton Park at the moment, although whether that goes in or not is another matter. And obviously the connections across the Bayswater Brook, each of those 5 new bridges is designed to stitch together the existing communities.
It's not that the planning authority have the power to actually tell you to put one in there, but are you considering it?
Well, we're considering, yes, yeah, we're considering different types of retail. I mean, ideally, it wouldn't be a big single shop. It would be a series of smaller opportunities to get employment in there.
Okay. And we've heard comment about there being no landscape buffer. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, there is a landscape buffer that exists to the west of the development and to the north of the development. I don't know whether it's worth getting a plan up if that's possible. Sarah. I mean, obviously, there is an existing bridleway that runs immediately to the west and then to the north of the site, which we can divert. So that creates the existing. That's already in existence.
Already there. That creates a buffer.
Well, it's not. No, it doesn't create a buffer, but it's currently accessible and is the bridleway, which we can't move.
Well, we're still trying to find a map. You caught on the hop.
Yeah, sorry,
it's not in the slide because that's kind of already been considered as part of the whole
yes, that's right.
application.
I'm just giving an opportunity
I think it's an appendix in the report.
But it is in the code release, so it could be relevant. Anybody else got any questions? Well,
yes.
Councillor.
Oh, actually, I have a question on the real substance of this application, which is the listed building, rather than all the other things about it. I'm actually looking at the pictures we've got of these, your proposal, the elevations, or change these buildings. This has been put in the A, B, and C buildings, and there are a lot of windows going in, and the building C, I see you're raising the height of the building. As far as I can see from the original photograph, it was a sort of formal cow shed.
Yeah.
With open bays at the front, and which has always traditionally been fairly low. So you're making that, raising it up. I don't know.
No, it's below my head height as it currently stands. So we're lifting it so that it's able to be accessed.
Okay. How much are you lifting it?
I would say I can probably come back to 2 feet, something like that.
Well, 3 feet.
Yeah, in terms of the front.
So it's a normal period.
Yeah, at the moment, the slope comes down to below head height level. And so
yes. So, and you're putting in new windowing and filling in the open base. It's really losing most of its character of a traditional farm building, isn't it?
It will be different from. Still think you'll read it as effectively an old shelter building.
Right.
So it will have glazing along the frontage. It will have a replaced roof. It will have a raised element for access, but that's the small details basically.
Yeah. Wow.
And it's probably worth saying that the glazing to the other building, not the barn building, but the other building, is mainly in existing openings. But the vast majority of that is replacing doors and existing windows within that structure.
Right. Obviously, well, you have to put these buildings into use, and you're losing not of their character, but there we are. That's progress, isn't it? I suppose. Quote. Thank you so much.
Have we found a map? No?
Yes.
Yes, we
Yeah.
have. Oh, it's up there now.
Yeah, so that's just showing that there is a landscape buffer all the way around Wick Farm Park, except this section here where there are existing buildings. So it couldn't go where the buildings are.
So does that, do you want me to point to that?
Yeah,
Sorry, yeah. So we put this buffer here, so we've deliberately put the suds ponds along here to broaden out this buffer. There's existing and there's new planting along here. On this edge, there's no development to the south of this. There's an existing orchard on the eastern edge and along with a significant existing tree bounding along there. And then there's new planting to the north. And then these facilities are further up the hill from the development. And then that's existing, this is existing. This is the new community building being put in. That's the bike shop.
Okay, committee, any questions on that? Okay. Any further questions? Seeing none, so thank you very much, Mr. Angel. Thank you.
Before we go on to development.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all right, we're coming your way.
Yes, okay,
Yes,
sorry.
So
Paula wishes to
just offer some advice in relation to consideration of this application, which is solicited building consent. We've heard quite a lot of matters that go outside the strict consideration of a listed building application, which I think have been helpful for context and information. But when it comes to actually assessing the merits of this particular application, what members have now got to concentrate on is their assessment of the works which essentially comprise of renovation and adaptation of the existing listed buildings. That's the remit. So we're talking about impact upon special architectural interest, historic character, not some of the wider issues that have come into play.
Can I just clarify, Paul? The new buildings, how does that sit in with what you just said?
So they were assessed as part of the
So
first
they've already been
application.
the new building's already got consent.
That's right.
Yeah. This is the work to the listed buildings that we're considering. Okay, we'll move on back to questions really for the planning officer, which is Sarah. Yeah. Can I ask one? The question of contaminated land has come up. Is that relevant or?
Again, that's been considered through that's a planning matter that's been considered through the planning application.
That's already been considered. Yeah.
And is dealt with. Yeah.
Yeah. That's when you got a question. Got a few puzzles.
No, just a passing observation. I do feel that in these discussions, the issue of contaminated land tends to get brushed to one side fairly quickly, and we never really have a chance to look at it. I do think this is regrettable. There are all sorts of concerns about contamination of land and water that just, we're told, no, that's been dealt with somewhere else, and I find that regrettable. So I just want to record that.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that was part of the last application.
Yeah, quite.
And was dealt with. I think
and there are conditions to
there are conditions
address that
on the last application to address that.
Yes, quite. But these things tend, as I say, to be sorted out without us having a great deal of input into them. That I'm just saying for the record, I do find that a bit regrettable that there is not enough.
We're still in question for the officer. Yeah, Councillor McDonald.
Yes, I'll get back on track here about the listed status. So the roof is going to, which is asbestos and concrete at the moment, is going to be replaced with a thatched again.
On right? The listed barn.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's going to enhance this side.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see no further questions.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I'm pleased to see the main barn being thatched. Presumably that was been investigated being the original
yes
thing as it was built. And I hardly should ask this because I presume it will be the case that the tiles on building A, B, and C will be handmade clay tiles.
There's a condition requiring further details of material, a suggested condition requiring further details of materials. So we'd have the opportunity to
say handmade clay tiles.
Well, we wouldn't be that
prescriptive, but the conservation officer would assess.
You know, as many large Tesco superstores are covered in clay tiles, and I don't think we want this. You know, if we've got the main barn is covered in thatch, you don't want the other ones to be looking like a Tesco superstore. If you'll pardon me saying so.
I mean, I think it would be based on what was, you know, appropriate to the buildings, depending on their historic character.
Okay, well, I'll come back and haunt you.
I think that's a request from the committee that you look at that very, very carefully. Yeah. Okay. Right. No further questions. Any further questions? No further questions. Therefore, I'm looking for a proposal. Councillor MacDonald.
I propose Ofsted recommendation.
Thank you very much. Is that seconded? Yes, it's seconded. Okay. Wish to speak?
Yeah, just briefly looking at the listed content here, not other new buildings or anything else that's considered elsewhere. It's making best use of existing structures and trying to conserve those architectural points of merit, and making best use of what we have there in the establishment.
Okay, so, thank you. Is there any debate? See no debate, so I'll go to Catherine to give her a seconder's speech.
Well, I think that in terms of a listed building consent, which is all this is really about, there's not really any real question that we should accept officer's recommendation. Historic England is content with what's proposed to the conservation officers, so I think that's sort of it. The idea that you can use heritage as part of placemaking is a good point and ought to be thought about in this case. But that then brings us on to sort of a wider consideration. There's a lot of talk about what these buildings might be used for and use classes and all the rest of it. And I do hope that as this goes forward, that there is more discussion between developers and people who live there and know the place about what actually might be done with these places and how to make that place, because that will be important going forward.
Yeah, I think we sympathise with that one. And I'll go to Councillor MacDonald.
Just very brief to say my concerns about that have been addressed by the officer. I'm content with that.
Okay, so I have a proposal made and seconded. Sorry, I got several rules for refusal. It's not proposal for acceptance of officer's recommendation. Proposal seconded. All those in favour, please show. That is 5 against. Abstentions. Thank you. Right, committee. Thank you very much. That's the end of the agenda for this evening.
Chairman.
Sorry. Appeals. It's for noting. I've lost it. No, I've lost it. Yes. I've lost those as well. Yeah.
But suppose we accept the
propose we accept them. Yeah. Okay, thank you. I'll second it. Okay, is that accepted? Yes, thank you. Sorry, we have not finished the meeting yet, please.
Yeah, I think we should congratulate the officers and get some refusals, Chairman, on the appeals.
Yes, the appeals have been dismissed. Yeah, yes, I think that's very gratifying when that happens. You see that the appeals inspector has supported the council's position, especially when it's been a committee report also. Yeah, that's the thing. The one thing of good news, I suppose, is that the next meeting scheduled for the
20th of November.
That one's been.
It's not going to take
It's not going to take place. There's no business.
Not because there's absolutely no business, but because we've got the applications ready for
There's
that.
nothing ready for that meeting, so the 20th of November will not occur. So the next meeting will be
on the 11th of December.
11th of December.
Wednesday, 11th of December. Yeah.
That's a long time away. Thank you, committee. Thank you. Difficult meeting this evening, so thank you. And thank you to the officers. Right, we're now finished.
Thank you, Bertie. Can you shut off the